I have an addiction I need to tell you guys about. It has 3 words. It's related to gun broker. Police trade-in. So the upper that you see here is a police trade-in Bushmaster. It's an old school one with the front sight post, and it came with a detachable carry handle, and it also came with the UTG Pro quad rail. Now, most people like me, when they hear UTG Pro, they think crap. However, the interesting thing about UTG Pro is that it's actually made in America. I've had pretty good luck with the UTG Pro handguards in the past, and this quad rail, in my opinion, feels pretty sturdy. But it doesn't matter how it feels, let's shoot it. Flip up the close range aperture. Let's get going. Do a Mozambique. One more round. Didn't lock open. Might be the relatively crappy PSA lower I have in here. Might be the old 20-round magazine that the spring is starting to wear out a little bit. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, this upper set me back after shipping $200. Now, a lot of people say that old Bushmaster is still pretty good quality. And in my experience so far, it kind of seems that way. So that's at, I don't know, this is about 15 yards. Let's push it back a little bit. Now, the interesting thing about 11.5s is that it is one of the earliest barrel lengths. The first was the 20-inch barrel that you're familiar with the Colt 601 or the M16A1, XM16E1, whatever. And then they had the 10-inch XM177. However, for reliability reasons, and I think for a little bit more lethality, they switched from the XM16 to the XM16E1, which had an 11.5 barrel. Now, we're at about 50 yards here, and I'm gonna see how I do just trying to get headshots on the target. Open sights, we're just gonna see how I do. Might not be very impressive, but let's take a look. Uh-oh, we had a malfunction. At first I thought this was just a quality control issue with the Meade ammo factory seconds that I was using. This ammunition is very cheap and is meant for training, not serious use, that Meade sells for a very low price. So I thought it was just a quality control issue with those rounds in particular. However, I continued shooting this gun on another range day and experienced this problem several more times. Now, it could just be a bad lot, but I've shot this same box through other rifles and had 0 problems. So the fact that I had several with this AR pistol probably means it's the gun. Googling this, I found that there were 2 main problems that could cause primer separation. One is overgassing, the other is excessive headspace. I've bought a headspace gauge to test this and see if that's the issue later today, so I'll leave a comment down below if that is the issue. However, if it is the gassing issue, which I think is probably more likely, I'll probably need to swap out to heavier buffers and heavier buffer springs and that kind of thing. I was hoping I wouldn't need to do that, but it might just be the reality of a shorter barreled AR pistol. Let's get back to the rest of the video. All right, there you have it. That's a primer. And then inside of there, we have a complete unfired round. I'm not sure. Okay, the bolt closed on it. All right, looks like we can keep going. All right, let's go look. Well, given the malfunctions and all that, I'm not sure exactly how many rounds I've fired. In fact, you'll know better than me. But we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impacts on the head. This one right here was already there. Now, another thing I would like to add, I am noticing this gun is pretty gassy. It is an 11.5, so that makes sense. I want to get a suppressor soon, and I'll probably put it on this as its primary gun. When I do, I'll probably get a flow-through suppressor, just because with 11.5s or shorter barrels, you can tend to be a little gassier. However, it doesn't feel like it's recoiling exceptionally hard or anything. Let's try and shoot a group at 100 yards and just see how it does. Run through the jungle. I think that was 10. Let's go take a look at the target. Darn, I only shot 9. Well, a couple flyers, but I would say that that's definitely not a bad group. It seems like this pistol is out shooting me for sure. So the Bushmaster Police Trade-In 11.5 upper. If somebody came to me and said that they wanted to get their first fighting rifle or AR-15, I think I would probably steer them towards a police trade-in. If you get something like a police trade-in Rock River Arms, a police trade-in Bushmaster, you can even find police trade-in Colts and Armalites for really not that expensive. So I think that what I have here is actually a really solid upper for the money, spending only $250. Now with police trade-ins, there are police trade-ins that sat in a car or in a holster almost their entire life and were brought out to qualify with once a year, shooting 20 to 50 rounds. There are also police trade-ins that were range guns that had shot thousands upon thousands of rounds. Now with a shotgun, that might really matter. However, in my opinion, with an AR, a platform that is really good at, well, shooting thousands upon thousands of rounds before it sees any major issues, I think that that wouldn't be that big of a deal, especially if you're okay with replacing basic things like buffer springs and extractors and that kind of thing. So I think for $250 shipped, I got an absolutely phenomenal upper. Now you'll notice that on the target, it's shooting up and left a little bit. If I was planning on keeping it this way, I would probably try and fix that. However, what I'm planning on doing with this is putting a red dot on it and a rear sight on it and kind of turning it into a nifty little, just a nifty little defensive gun. There are videos on police trade-ins on this channel. I think my next police trade-in is gonna be a Gen 2 Glock. I just think that they're really, really cool. So if you're interested in seeing what I do with this gun, subscribe to the channel and you'll see more updates down the road. All of that being said, I am 8mm Mauser Man and I have a crippling gun broker addiction, but I lived on. Time in forever. At least I've got a chance. Keep the change, you filthy animal.